What a wild week! We had yet another YouTuber announce their retirement. Secret tunnels were found under New York City. An entire country declared a state of emergency after one man disappeared from his cell. Sony revealed a new car that could be controlled with a PlayStation remote. At least it's not Logitech. Ha! Not a funny joke. And so much more shit went down, so let's get into it. So we kicked off this week with the largest and most powerful tech event in the world, CES. Now, if you didn't know what CES is, it's essentially a place where all of the top companies gather each year to show off all of their latest and greatest technological innovations. And this year, we got some bangers, starting with this. Now, whenever there's a movie set in the future, the first thing that we always see is when people call each other, they're on holograms. No more of this stupid hardware. Get out of here. And this year, a company called HoloConnects showed that the future isn't really that far away with their AI-powered hologram technology. They say it will provide solutions for staffing, remote consults by doctors, retails, events, and education. The only problem is, the machine looks like the size of a bloody fridge, and I'm not even gonna speculate on the price. So, as of right now, it might just be easier to go and see the person that you're trying to connect with. This one was wild because it's a car that carries a massive manned drone in its bloody boot. And yeah, we've seen some concepts of flying cars before, and they're always promising us it's coming, it's soon. But this company say that they will be taking orders at the end of this year, and they will be delivering these things by 2025. And honestly, it's not even that expensive. They estimate a price of $200,000, which, I mean, for a car and a flying car, it's not that bad. Probably one of the biggest things to come out of the event this year was this, because we've got transparent TVs now. The fuck? Samsung and LG both came out to create the world's first transparent TV. Now, the way it works is that all of these tiny microscopic pixels that are on the screen essentially turn transparent when they're not being used, allowing you to see right through as if it was a piece of glass. And as shown on Jerry Riggs' video on this, because it's supposed to be more of a nice looking design piece, LG has one of these things where you can stream stuff to your TV from this little black box, so there's completely no wires. Philips created a home security device where you don't need your keys, you don't even need a pin, because all it does is remember your palm. If you miss the good old days of having a BlackBerry and a physical keyboard, well, miss no longer, because we now have an iPhone case that has a keyboard on it. You just plug it in and yeah, you're living in the old days. We got Sony's new electric car, which of course was brought on stage using a PlayStation controller. This is something that I wonder every single day of my life, how has this not been invented before? Because it is a toothbrush that brushes all your teeth at one time. Seems like, why have we not got this 10 years ago? You just chuck it in your mouth, chew on it softly and move it side to side, wait for the timer to tell you when you're done, flip it around and do the exact same thing, and you're done in about 20 seconds. We're in the goddamn Stone Ages right now. And whenever that drops, I'm copping. LG showed off a robot butler that can follow you around the house, turn on the lights for you, feed your dog, project stuff on the wall for you, sends texts, makes phone calls, points a camera at you, and even reminds you to take the bloody bins out. Okay, now this one is very cool. Now this is an AI device which essentially does what Siri is supposed to do. It's actually able to do shit. Sorry, you can tell that me and Siri have been... We've been in the wars lately. The Rabbit R1 works by connecting to all of your accounts, somewhat scary, and then it has the capability to navigate through all of them to the point where you could say, book me an Uber ride to the local brothel. And it'll do it. They even say that you can get it to watch you do something on any device. Let's say, for example, you're editing a picture on your laptop, and you can ask it to do that once you've taught it how to edit a picture. And that would be huge, because personally, I like the idea of whatever comes after a smartphone to have the capability of a smartphone, but doesn't require you to use your bloody Stone Age thumbs to navigate through everything and do it all yourself. So we're allowed to have all of the efficiencies of a smartphone, but not have to be glued to our phones all the time. And I feel like this could be, the first small step in the right direction. Now, there were so many more things, but those were my favorites. So let's move on, because talking about insane tech, this week we had an iPhone surviving a 16,000-foot drop out of that Alaska Airlines flight that blew out mid-air. I mean, I don't even know what's more insane. The fact that that phone survived the fall, or the fact that someone found it. I mean, like, come on. Out of all of the scenarios that you could lose your phone getting sucked out of an aeroplane is probably one of those where you're like, you know what, okay, fair enough. I'm just gonna buy a new one. Firstly, what are the chances of the side of your plane blowing out and then your phone getting sucked out with it? And then, what are the chances out of all of the places it could land, it lands somewhere soft enough to take the impact from the fall? Then, what are the chances of someone seeing where it lands? And then the chances of that person being a good enough person to actually hand that phone back in for you. The whole situation is ridiculous and insane. And it was even handed back with half a battery and their baggage claim form still in there for them. And if you look closely enough, there's a broken off charger still inside. Okay, let's move on, because talking about impossible chances, recently a 13-year-old boy in France was just doodling in class, not paying attention, just drawing some of his favorite fun items of clothes and shoes. He comes home, his mom sees what he's drawn, is so proud that she has to post it on Twitter. A local French publication then saw the sketches and thought, yeah, that's pretty sick, let's do a story on it. And then by a miracle, Louis Vuitton then sees that post and is like, God damn, this shit's sick. In fact, they were so impressed by his designs that they reached out to him and offered him an internship, becoming the company's youngest ever intern. And not only that, but this story has now gone mega viral and tens of millions of people have seen his work. So I guess the moral of the story really is, just don't pay attention in class. Moving on, because what the US and UK did this week has all of us in the gym like this. Yes, 2 days in a row now, the US and the UK have bombed a number of parts of Yemen. Now, I won't dive into all of the details of why and what it means for the world, because I've already done that on TikTok. Go check that out there. But what I didn't get to show you then was the public's reaction to all of these strikes. Now, what you are seeing is thousands upon thousands of people as far as the eye can see protesting in the country's capital. And you want to know what the hell they're chanting? They're all there waving the Yemen and Palestine flags, shouting, "Death to America, death to Israel." And I mean, even children can be seen stamping and setting fire to the US and Israel flag. I mean, looking at that, we are in some worrying times. And not only that, but as I record this right now, there are hundreds of thousands of people set to descend onto the streets in London in protest, in support of Palestine. Bit of a hectic week. But just to kind of tip the scales, we can all relax a little bit, because experts say that yes, while this is a worrying escalation, we probably won't be breaking out into World War III because of this. For that to happen, they say that a lot more countries would need to get involved in support of the Houthis, which, remember, are only a part of Yemen. And that, as of right now, doesn't seem very likely. Hopefully I've got some more positive updates on this whole situation for you next week, because as of right now, it's kind of just all kicking off. Moving on, a wild riot broke out this week at a New York synagogue after secret tunnels were found in the building. Now, this whole situation is so strange, and we do have a little bit, but not a whole lot of explanation as to why or how these tunnels were dug. Now, these illegal tunnels were actually found last month when neighbors reported hearing suspicious noises coming from underneath their homes. I mean, with the size of the freaking rats in New York, I would have just said, it's probably the rats. Cue a massive rat on the screen right now. Actually, cue this video. It's a little bit of a tangent. But okay, the video that you're watching right now, I saw the other day, and it's of a homeless man, and he's just trying to get some sleep in a New York subway, and then the guy kind of sees a few rats sneaking out of the blankets, and he's like, what the hell's going on over here? He goes over, and I think he lifts up the blankets or something like that, and hundreds, millions of rats just run out. New York City. That's what I would have blamed the noises on if I was there. Anyway, let's continue. So, following this discovery of the tunnels, the synagogue leadership called in these structural engineers to assess the damages that these tunnels may have had. And then when they called the cement mixers and construction crew to fill them, a group of rebellious Orthodox men tried to stop it. Many of them started ripping away the wooden walls, which is hiding the entrance to these secret tunnels, and then ran in there to try and prevent them from being filled. A riot broke out, police were then called, and 9 of them were arrested arrested and have since been charged. Now, it's not clear what the purpose of these tunnels are, and a lot of people have gone wild with speculation. We don't want to speculate here. The only thing that we do know is that reportedly they were being dug for an entire month. They had a freaking soiled mattress in there for some reason. We saw footage posted on Crown Heights Instagram showing that through an eerie, dirt-walled space, the tunnel reached all the way to the abandoned woman's mikvah, which is nearby. Now, as for the reason why they wanted them connected, a spokesperson for the Jabad said this group of extremist students wanted to expand the synagogue and connect it to the mikvah. And if you didn't know what a mikvah is, it's basically a bath in which certain Jewish ritual purifications are performed in. Now, that's pretty much all we've got. Hopefully, this week we'll get some more details about this whole situation, and I'll give you an update next week. Moving on! Now, the next story I have to be a little bit careful about because I don't want this video being taken down by the YouTube overlords. The situation in Ecuador right now, it's getting pretty serious. This week, the entire country was placed under a state of emergency after one man vanished from his prison cell. Just imagine being that powerful / dangerous that an entire country is descended into chaos because you got the f*** out. Now, for context, the man that escaped was a notorious gang leader known as Fito. Seems like a friendly name though, doesn't it? Hey, my boy Fito. Everyone loves Fito. And his escape has caused the nation to literally descend into lawlessness. The president not only ordered a nationwide curfew, but also declared a state of internal armed conflict, which is, you know, fancy way for maybe just saying civil war, and sent the army onto the streets. The cartel has been kidnapping police officers, threatening to end anyone that they found on the streets at night, attacking universities, and they even broke onto a television channel's studio while they were live on a broadcast and forced the staff to the floor. They did more than that, but I don't want to get this video taken down. In fact, the situation there has got so bad that their neighboring country, Peru, has had to order immediate deployment of a police force to the border to prevent any instability spilling over into their country. So this man's causing shit in not only one country, but pretty much two. These cartels are quite literally at war with police right now. And what's sad is that it wasn't always like this. A spokesperson for the country's navy said Ecuador was always considered an island of peace and tranquility. But no more. Over the past 4 years, as Mexican cartels and crime syndicates, including the Albanian mafia, have flocked to Ecuador in search of huge profits from cocaine trade, its murder rate has soared, making Ecuador one of Latin America's now most violent nations. Sad to hear, and this situation is only getting worse, so hopefully I'll give you some more updates next week that are positive. And finally, let us dive into the question, why the hell are all of these YouTubers quitting right now? I mean, just recently we've had Tom Scott, Seth Everman, Captain Sparkles, Meat Cannon, Stampy Longhead, and most recently, Matt Pat from Game Theory, all quitting or stepping back in one form or another. And honestly, I think we're seeing just the start of this because firstly, YouTube has been around long enough now for all of the OGs to be consistently making daily and weekly content for over a decade. And as a lot of them mention themselves, they're tired, they're burnt out, and they just want to pursue something else. And I guess we all get that. That's self-explanatory, no surprises there. But why now? Well, the most interesting thing that came from one of these YouTubers quitting was what Tom Scott said in an interview with The Guardian. It feels like a lot of people who have been making long-form content have recently announced not retirements, but reductions and step backs. Everyone I know is noticing their views slowly falling and therefore their ad revenue reducing. And I guess this is where I and all of my other short-form crony creators come into the play. Because one of the biggest things that a lot of YouTubers are worried about right now is the rise of short-form content. Think about it, people only have a certain amount of hours in their day. So if they decide to spend 2 hours of their day on TikTok, which they would normally or before spend it on YouTube, that is quite literally taking views from YouTubers and giving it to TikTok creators. Or Instagram Reels, let's not forget about them. And I mean, it's like the saying, Netflix's biggest competition is sleep. And I mean, my brother's a YouTuber. I've been seeing him complain about how his entire niche is down bad right now. I mean, of course, it's not only short-form content's fault, but in general, it is playing one of the biggest parts. And the problem is, if YouTubers' views are going down, their money's going down, and they're stressed, is going up. Just think about the mental state of someone who relies on getting views to survive, and then slowly, little bit by little bit, seemingly without anything that they can do, their views start to trickle away. Granted, it's pretty scary. Tom Scott continues by saying, between the decline in long-form viewers, the threat from junk zero-effort generative AI channels that are only going to get better, and the sheer mass of competing video options, I think it's going to be a difficult few years. So, as a big short-form creators that YouTubers will probably look at and say, I am the problem, let me try and answer the question, do I think that YouTube is dying? No. I don't, and I think it is because of one thing that's keeping it alive right now. Short-form creators, once they get big enough, always want to leave these short-form apps because they do not pay. And if platforms like TikTok and Instagram don't pay, it's really hard to scale your videos and business in general. I mean, think about Mr. Beast. There is no way Mr. Beast could run his operation on TikTok rates. The only reason we have a Mr. Beast in the world is because of YouTube. They've literally enabled us having a Mr. Beast. And even if YouTubers are seeing a dip in their views and money right now, I genuinely think that if YouTube at the end of the day is always poaching the best creators in the world because the other apps just don't pay, YouTube is where the best content and best creators in the world will end up at the end of the day. And a platform is only good as the creators which are on it. And listen, as a TikTok creator, I can tell you firsthand that right now, none of these short-form apps have figured out the problem of how to pay, or at least pay well, their short-form creators to make us want to stay on those apps. Hence why I'm even here in the first place. At least that's what I think anyway, and that is where we will end this week's news. But of course, as always, I'm sure we've got a whole lot more shit kicking off next week, so I'll see you then.